Hello YouTube. I hope this isn't going to get boring for everybody, but another video on the subject of Earthshine photography during the eclipse. Now the saga of whether this is possible is continuing, and accusations are still getting chucked around all over the place. I saw this video from Mike Helmick today, and I was surprised by what he said at the start. Pardon me, of the start of the video. And so I thought I would post something. Now, the issue that Mike is concerned with and others are concerned with is whether the YouTuber Soundly has in some way falsified a photograph, inserted an image of the moon into an eclipse photograph, and then claimed that it was an original unaltered photograph. I'll leave Soundly to defend himself on that. I think he has a pretty good case. Mike seems to think that he can prove otherwise. This isn't my beef. My beef is Mike and others' whole approach to this subject. What we should be trying to determine is whether Earthshine can be seen during totality of an eclipse, and whether on the 21st of August 2017, Earthshine was seen during totality of the eclipse. Now, Earthshine is not something a totality that you would see with the naked eye, and it's not something you would see if you just pointed a camera at the eclipsed sun and took a quick picture on whatever automatic exposure setting the camera decided was good. And even if you set the exposure level yourself, you would need to set it to very long exposure or fairly long exposure, and you'd need to have a camera and possibly a telescope that were capable of revealing the Earthshine. Technology is becoming better. People are getting better at doing this. It used to be considered the holy grail of eclipse photography. And people have been taking Earthshine pictures during eclipse going back for quite some time. The suggestion that every single person who's ever done that is lying about it and has faked it in some way seems to me to be somewhat absurd, or certainly something that requires a great deal of evidence to back it up. However, even that isn't my main beef with Mike Helmick and others. Mike is entitled to be skeptical about things if he wishes to be so. But what he's not entitled to do is lie. Now I'm going to play the first part of this video and then go on to comment.
Hi, why did you join me? This is the short version of Sally's photo that was used in Globus, because Sally was a Globus presentation by the Jet that you included in the job of the Eclipse. And I thought that was very strange, since out of the hundreds of photos taken of the eclipse that day and all the many raw image data that was sent to me, nobody saw the moon at all, except for Sally, of course. And so
So he just said nobody saw the moon at all except for Soundly, of course. That is a lie, and furthermore, Mike knows that is a lie. This video was published on September the 10th. And Mike and I have been having Skype exchanges, text exchanges over Skype, and sharing files with each other, sending files to each other for several days since the eclipse, in fact, about this very subject, whether Earthshine is photographable at the time of totality during an eclipse. And I'd sent Mike several pictures from photographers. These are photographs that I've obtained from other photographers that show Earthshine, and those photographers claim that they saw. These are photographs taken at the time of the eclipse and so they were able to see Earthshine. And Mike knew this when he made this video, when he made that statement, that no one else saw it except for Soundly. And that's a lie, and it needs to be called out as such. And I want to be able to prove that it's a lie. So if we look at the conversations that I have with Mike, this is dated the 9th of the 9th on Skype. And he says, those are pretty cool images. These may be what we're looking for. Thank you. He answers another question in here. And he's referring here to the last set of images I sent him, which were claimed by the photographer to be direct from the camera images. They're still in the CR format of the Canon camera that took them. And I'd exchanged, so here's the zip files containing those. Mike has sent me pictures, and we have other pictures that we've been exchanging over the course of several days. So this is on the 8th of the 9th, and the conversation goes back considerable time. We bounce in and out of it over some time, 2 or 3 exchanges on particular days. Anyway, I won't bore you by scrolling back up through that, but you can see that back onto the 7th, and we're having the conversations. The conversation had gone on for some time. Mike knew very well he has those images and he's been able to look at them. I've done some videos on some of those images showing that Earthshine is indeed quite visible. Now, the photographers in question all have websites, and they all publish their Earthshine pictures. So I don't feel too guilty about revealing their identities, and I've already revealed the identity of one of them. However, I'm not going to make too big a deal about who they actually are. But here is an email received from one. It says, Miles, the original files are way too large. I'd asked if he could send me just one of the files that he put together in a composite, if I could have one of the originals and be able to see Earthshine in it. And he says there are too many of them to email. Well, that's fair enough. And he says he's attached one of the longest exposures, 2 seconds in JPEG format, which shows Earthshine on the moon and an overexposed corona. It is unprocessed, but you can bring out details on the moon's disk with an image editing program. And this was the first one that I sent to Mike, and that's the image there that was used. Now, clearly, it's an image that is not a direct from camera raw image. And I can understand Mike's skepticism about any image which is not, direct for the camera. It would appear to me that Mike trusts all images sent to him from flat earthers and none of the images sent from anybody else. But that's his prerogative. However, that doesn't change the fact that those images, any image, is evidence of something, and only if you can show that an image has actually been altered or tampered with do you prove that it can be ignored completely. Yes, be skeptical. Yes, say, okay, well, that's one image. It might have been doctored in some way, so we can't come to a certain conclusion, but we have an image that shows evidence of Earthshine. Here is another email that I received, which is from another photographer who says it's for real, because I asked him basically whether the Earthshine is real. He says he was surprised himself when he first saw pictures like that. I was even more surprised when my own photographs of the August 21st eclipse showed Earthshine. Very clearly visible, even on the camera display before I downloaded to the computer. It's so cool. It was a specific goal for me, and it used to be a very sort of the holy grail of eclipse photography to get this. The technology's improved and people are more able to do it. This guy's actually got some pretty sophisticated kit, so I'm not surprised he managed to do it. He says he's shared them in a Dropbox folder with raw images, and these are the numbers for them. And If I share them online anywhere else, that's fine, but please do give credit to me. Thanks. And I will, at the end of this video, credit this particular photographer and put something in the description box below as well. And there's a link to a Dropbox, and he says the Eclipse JPEGs in his gallery are completely unprocessed, except by default RAW to JPEG in camera settings. I used Adobe Lightroom to export from RAW to JPEG, but I didn't even change levels, contrast, exposure, or anything else. Obviously, processing in Photoshop, etc., brings out even more detail. And he says he's seen one of my YouTube videos, and he's right. You can't see this in just any Eclipse photo. There needs to be enough signal to noise to begin with, and very little scattered light. And he posts a link to somebody who discusses that. And he uses a particular refractive telescope and high quality optics and so on to generate his images. So there's another one, and he sent me 2 raw images which I sent to Mike Helmick. They were the last ones that I sent to Mike, and he had them on the 9th of September. So he knew that they existed. And we have now a second testimony from a photographer that Earthshine can be photographed at the time of totality of an eclipse. And this one has provided what he says are raw images without any processing at all. So there is another photographer who I contacted, whose response is, you are correct. The Earthshine data is recorded within the long exposure. I did not paste an image of the moon taken at another time. The raw CR2 files, again, they're like the ones that the previous photographer sent me, are large, so I cannot attach to this email. To begin with, I did attach a JPEG of what comes out of the camera. So this is a 1 second exposure, and you can just barely see the Earthshine. And he has on this email attached a photograph, I can get that to stop, which is a 1 second exposure and does show Earthshine. He says I co-added several 1 second exposures together and then used special processing algorithms to increase the contrast of the moon. And he says, generously, if there is still some question concerning the validity of the data, I can produce a short video that demonstrates how it is done. So we have a third testimony from a photographer that he photographed Earthshine at the time of the eclipse. And then we have a fourth photographer who responded to my inquiries. Now, this photographer gives a slightly different answer in a way, but is equally clear about what he did. So he says that the image I saw on Flickr is composed of the following 3 images, stacked with a mean function applied to it. Following 3 are frames from the camera. Except for being cropped, they have not been processed in any other way. They came out of the camera as you see them below. In the first one, you can make out a hint of the moon's surface, which is pretty amazing if you ask me, and I agree, it's pretty amazing. So if we go down to that first image, there it is, and I hope you can see the shading and shadowing on that image there. This is a long exposure image and shows the moon surface. I can make out Tycho crater here and the Mare here and so on. So once again, we have an image that the photographer claims has not been altered in any way, showing the Earthshine. He enhances that by increasing brightness contrast. However, unfortunately, once you average the 3 images during stacking, the surface of the moon becomes darker since the other frames are darker than this one. Therefore, after averaging them, I need to reapply the first frame's moon on top of the averaged image. So you are correct in saying that one can capture Earthshine in these images, but your opponent, because I told him that I was discussing this online, is correct in saying the moon was pasted on top of the image, even though the moon was captured as part of the Eclipse HDR sequence. What he's referring to there is his composite image, which is posted on his website, and that composite image does contain a pasted in version of the moon in order to create the final image, the final effect. However, this particular single exposure here does not. This single exposure, in which Earthshine is still visible and the moon surface is still visible, does not contain anything pasted in, according to the testimony that he gives us. So we now have photographs from 4 photographers showing Earthshine. Some of them claim to be direct from camera images, and some are images that may have been through some degree of processing or change since they were taken and being sent to me. We have the testimony from those 4 photographers that they've not added anything to these images or done anything to create an effect of the moon surface being visible, that these are the images that they took at the time. And I have sent the photographs of 3 of those photographers to Mike Helmick, and I'll happily send him the photographs from the 4th one as well. He is more than welcome to analyze them in any way he wishes, and if he thinks that they are fake in some way, he can have that opinion. However, what he's not at liberty to do is to lie and to claim that nobody ever sees Earthshine in their photographs. And these people do see Earthshine in their photographs. And they claim to see it in the original photographs and not to have to do any fancy fiddling around at all in order to create that. People can come to their own conclusions. It's pretty straightforward to get a look at some of these images. You just type something like Eclipse Earthshine into Google and you get a whole lot of stuff. Now, some of them are Earthshine not necessarily at an eclipse, so this is a crescent moon where the rest of the moon is illuminated by Earthshine, but there's plenty of eclipse ones from different eclipses that have happened over the years, including the most recent one in August 2017. There is almost certainly going to be some that are not genuine images. For example, this one with the black ring around the edge, to me, looks quite suspect. And it's from 2006. And we don't seem to have that image. You can see quite a lot of information on this site. I wonder if we'll get the Earthshine one up at the end. That's quite a nice image showing just how dark that thing is. And here, okay, moon and sun at same scale image editing. So they're admitting that this is an edited image where presumably this has been pasted in. And most photographers are pretty honest. When they do something like that, they say that's what I did. Of the 4 photographers I contacted, 3 of them said that they simply had to stack the images and fiddle around a little bit with brightness and contrast settings, whilst one said that there was a need to paste an image of the moon in over the top. I don't expect photographers to give away their trade secrets. The others may have done similar things, but as you can see, there are plenty of Earthshine images from eclipses out there in the world, and the photographers who take these are understandably fairly proud of what they've managed to achieve. And as you can see from the emails that I have been sent, they are more than willing to engage in conversation about how they did it and how the images are actually created. Most of the ones we see here are composite images, but not all of them are composite images, and they're there. And if you go to places, Sky and Telescope has a number of these, and if you go to something like Sky and Telescope, you find that the image is published, and this is one of the photographers that I contacted and will be credited later on. And this is an image. It describes the image here, and the moon illuminated by Earthshine are visible in the long exposures of the outer corona. And this is actually one of the images I think that I sent an original to Mike, and he has that, and he can do what he wishes to take it to bits, but I'm inclined to believe the people who have published these photographs and have had the they're professional or amateur photographers, but some of them sell their work. Some are professional photographers who sell their work. They all have reputations, and they're people who would hardly be inclined to share their work in this way if they feared that their reputation was going to be destroyed by somebody proving that they were making stuff up and creating false images and publishing them on the internet. So, Mike, that's where I want to leave this for now. I have 1 or 2 images that I haven't yet sent to you, and I may do that later on. I will happily discuss this further with you. I know your feelings about having to deal with completely raw data and raw images. I feel that you're entirely that's entirely understandable, but wrong. Any picture is evidence of something, and as you know, if people are claiming something is a genuine and unaltered image, then unless you can show that it has been altered in some significant way, then their testimony, their evidence remains valid, albeit something you must treat with skepticism. People do lie. The question is, are these people likely to be lying, and how many photographs of Earthshine have to be taken, have to be published, before you and others will accept that it is indeed the moon that passes in front of the sun at the time of the eclipse. You said to me in Skype that you think it is the moon. So why are we arguing about whether it's the moon or not? You've got some ideas about the moon not being a solid lump of rock. Well, good. If you can ever prove that, you will be a very, very famous, and if you want to be, very, very wealthy man. But at the moment, all the evidence is that the moon is a big lump of rock. It's a big spherical lump of rock, and it passes between the Earth and the Sun periodically and creates wonderful eclipse images. And people with very good cameras and telescopes manage to capture those images. Why make a big argument about it? Why accuse another YouTuber of lying and of fabricating evidence when you really seem to have very, very little evidence? I've looked through that video of yours, and if you had some real evidence, your main evidence seems to be when you switch on and off different light channels, the bit of moon image that's there disappears sometimes and not others. You click through that so quickly. Now, if you were confident that that was genuine evidence, surely you would hover over those images and you would explain in detail exactly what you're doing and show clearly the evidence that is there, that there was some image pasted in to that thing. The other point I would make about Soundly's image, and as I said, he can defend himself, but the other point I would make is that if you were going to paste an image in, I think you'd paste something in that looked a little bit clearer than what he has. I think what he has is entirely expected from the exposure levels that he took at the time. That exposure level will give a very faint Earthshine on the photograph, and that's exactly what you see. And if it's brighter in some color settings than others, that's not too surprising either, given that cameras have different sensors and different sensitivities, that sunlight is scattered by the Earth's atmosphere and so on. Now, I think you're claiming it's only in the green channel. I really, you clicked over that so quickly, it was pretty difficult to see whether you were, and I haven't taken the time to pause every frame and see exactly what you were doing and why you were doing it and what effect you might be creating. But it's not the greatest of evidence, and Soundly seems extraordinarily confident that that's an original image taken by his camera, or somebody's camera. So, sort of be careful. You're chucking out accusations that people are liars and frauds, and you're not presenting evidence. Now, I've presented evidence that you're lying about only Soundly ever seeing Earthshine at the 2017 eclipse, because I have evidence that other people saw it as well. Lots of that other evidence, and you've had that evidence as well, so you can't claim you didn't see it. And so you are lying about that. Now, you might say, well, you think they faked their evidence as well, so they didn't really see it. Okay. In which case, you're the one making the accusation of fakery, and you're the one who then has to prove that accusation. So, Mike, I don't think you're being honest, and I do think you're being very unreasonable in the way that you're treating everything to do with this subject. Thanks, folks, for listening, and I'll put some credits in the description of this video for the photographers whose work I just think is wonderful. I wish I could take photographs like they do.